So today I'm going to be sharing about the 4 pillars of self-esteem. Everyone in the room knows to some degree what they are, and I'm just going to go a little deeper with them and expand on the understanding on some of those pillars in particular. So you guys really get more and more of a sense of the dynamic that affect those pillars and just different approaches to work with those pillars and reinforcing those pillars. So the 4 pillars of self-esteem are 4 different aspects that form our sense of self-esteem, which is a real foundational core element within our being, which is very crucial as a base or center from which we act in our life. A foundation, we call it the foundation of self-esteem because it really is something upon which a lot of our relationship with ourselves, relationship with life, what motivates us, what drives us in our life, really in the end is rooted in that sense of self-esteem. And for those of us who have done work on ourselves for a certain amount of time, engaged in the personal growth process, often when you go deeper into the issues that you're struggling with or the challenges that you're facing in your life, in the end, at some point, it always comes down to worthiness, self-esteem, belonging, uniqueness, self-determination, some of these issues, and self-love, all these things, and all of that is part of that foundation of self-esteem. So it's very important to have a foundation of self-esteem really sorted and really strong. And that's a process that we need to revisit regularly, that we need to reinforce regularly. And the more we grow, the more we develop gifts, or the more we become aware, the more we embrace more of our truth, more of our energy, the more our foundation upon which it rests needs to also be strengthened. Now, the self-esteem foundation is something that we build anew in every life. However, as souls traveling through time from life to life, we come into any particular incarnation with certain unresolved issues, certain impacts, scars, patterns, beliefs that we carry as a soul from life to life, which will affect also how we build a sense of self-esteem. So there are really 2 things that are a big influence in the self-esteem is what baggage we come in with as a soul and how much self-esteem we have at soul level, and also the early formative experiences of life, childhood, teenage years, all of that are also very important in building a sense of self-esteem. The quality of the parenting we receive, the quality of experiences that we had as a child is going to have a big impact on that sense of self-esteem. Now, of course, no matter what baggage we came in as a soul, no matter the kind of impacts and challenges that we experience as a child, which may have affected our self-esteem negatively, there's a lot of healing and a lot of transformation that can be done to change that. If you have a very low self-esteem because you've had a very difficult childhood where maybe you've been bullied or put down, or you were not really given a lot of love and positive reinforcement, you can go through a lot of healing and really clear some of these issues and have a stronger foundation. Hey, honey bunch. Hey, my honey bunch. You got something to say? Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just go on through the 4 pillars and have a bit of the official Cosmosis definition of those pillars. And then I'm just going to talk a little bit more about each pillar and have a deeper understanding of all of that. Okay, so the first pillar, they're in no particular order, really. It's not like they have to come in an order, but the first here is a sense of belonging. Definition of that is human beings have a deep-rooted need to feel part of something larger than oneself. That's a basic human need, just like the need to to be loved, the need to eat, the need to sleep. As human beings, we have a need to feel part of something bigger, to feel part of the tribe, to feel part of a group, to have that sense of connection with something that's bigger than just the one person that we are. Sense of uniqueness is the second pillar. In order to mature properly, we must know and accept ourselves as a unique combination of traits and talents which has never existed before, nor will again. Okay, every single one of us is unique as an energy, as a soul, but also as a human being. And so even though you as a soul going from life to life, you will continue to exist beyond this life, this particular incarnation and this particular expression will never happen again. It will never be again. You will never be exactly the same in any other life as you are in this one. So this is it. This is your one chance to be unique at who you are being right now. Third pillar is a sense of worthiness. In order to self-actualize, you have to be glad you are you. You must have your own approval. This gives you the emotional means to explore and make known the unknown. Now, worthiness is a very important one. It's one that many people struggle with, and I will go deeper into that later. And finally, a sense of self-determination is the last pillar. This is the functioning knowing and understanding that we have the ability to control what happens to us in an uncertain world. This self-efficacy or sense of self-determination allows you to know you can succeed. It inspires you to make your life about long-term success. Also a very important one. This is a very active aspect of the self-esteem. It's really about exercising that power of free will, and it's about taking ownership and responsibility for yourself and for your life. And while that can seem scary to some people, it's a very empowering process. Okay, so these are the 4 pillars of self-esteem. Now, all the pillars, and those of you who have done the course recently on the latest course on level 3, will have worked with the relationship between those pillars, because each pillar is not just doing its own thing independently of the others. All the pillars are linked together. All of the pillars affect each other. If your sense of worthiness really drops, it will affect the other pillar. If your sense of uniqueness really goes way up, it will affect the other pillars. If you exercise your self-determination, you often find yourself building up a sense of worthiness and perhaps a sense of uniqueness. The more you appreciate your uniqueness, it often affects your sense of belonging and offers a sense of belonging just because you are accepting yourself as a unique being. So there's a lot of dynamics going on between all the pillars. So when we work on one particular pillar, we have to also remain aware of the others, because like you were sharing before, you were working on that sense of belonging. Well, as you do that, it can really start to really bring up then your sense of worthiness, and as that comes up, then it can reinforce your sense of self-determination. And as that comes up, it can then help you with your uniqueness. And that's just an example. So when you're starting to work on a particular pillar, just remain aware of what else can come up, what else can be healed, what else can be strengthened in the process. So you don't just go, oh, I'm working on belonging, so that's all I'm doing, and I'm not going to necessarily take the opportunities to also strengthen some of the other pillars, because right now I'm working on belonging. So work on whatever it is that you're focusing on in the moment. If you have particular issues coming up around either worthiness or uniqueness or belonging or self-determination, work with that, feel the feelings, use the processes that we have to strengthen these and to clear the issues and the blocks to that. But be also aware of how that ripples out throughout your whole foundation, and how you can take that process deeper to bring it all up, to get it all happening. Now, let's go a little bit deeper into some of these. So the sense of belonging, that human, natural, intrinsic need to feel part of something bigger, that can play out in lots of really unhealthy ways. That can really drive people to do that whole thing where they're fitting in rather than belonging. And we've all experienced that to some degree. That the big difference between having that natural sense of belonging or embracing that natural sense of belonging and the fitting in, is that you're really denying your uniqueness. That's one of the big differences. When you allow yourself to really embrace the natural belonging, it's like finding your place, letting yourself get sucked into place, because we all belong somewhere with something on some level in lots of different ways. I mean, the fact that we're all here in a body on planet Earth means, first of all, that we do belong here with this planet. We do belong with spirit, because we are part of spirit and we are one with source, and we are all children of spirit as well as children of the earth. So this belonging is there naturally. Whether we feel it or not is another story. But there will be naturally some places where we are magnetically attracted to go and be a part of, because it's in our nature. Because that's what we are drawn to, because that's something that really resonates with the choices we're making, or with where we are at in our lives. And really the belonging thing has a big relationship with that sense of magnetic attraction, because the belonging is when you have a connection with something, when you have an affinity with something, when you resonate in unison with something, in harmony with something, and the belonging will be there. There are certain things that we don't belong with. You know, having a sense of belonging, having that strong pillar of belonging, doesn't mean that you're going to just belong with anything and anyone, anywhere, at any time. I personally don't feel that I particularly belong with, let's say, the sporting crowd, for instance. I'm not into sport. I'm not particularly interested. I'm not the whole experience of, you know, that crowd and cheering and all this. I've experienced it, and, you know, I understand that thing that it does, was it carries you with the energy of the crowd and all that, but I don't feel that's where I belong, and that's just not something I have an affinity with. But for some people, they really get that sense of belonging by doing that. And for some people, it may be right. For other people, it might be something they're doing to fit in, because that's what their family does, or that's what their mates do, or the people that they work with do. So they may or may not have an affinity with it, but in order to have something to share with their family or their friends or their work colleagues, then they just make themselves fit in with it. And that's where there is a difference. When you do that, you're actually denying your own nature. Trying to fit in with something that you don't naturally belong with means that you have to repress or deny something within yourself. And that's a big difference. And all of us, when we've gone through the experience of making the effort to fit in, whether it was at school when we were growing up, or it's, maybe with people in our family, or people at work, there's always a sense of having to bend yourself out of shape to do it, and having to squash something, shut something up within yourself, which is that sense of uniqueness that go, hey, we don't belong here. And you have to kind of shut that up in order to make yourself fit in and tell yourself that, oh, hey, this is where I should be, and this is where I fit in. So often when I work with students, over time what happens is that when they have that realization, and in my own experience too actually, when they have that realization that they've been really bending themselves out of shape to fit in with a particular crowd and to not upset the people around them, to keep the peace, all of these things, and they realize, oh my God, I've been doing this for so long, I can't do it anymore. I don't want to fake it. I don't want to have to be the peacemaker all the time, all of that. There's that real sense of having to empower themselves and having to liberate themselves from that repression and suppression. The mistake I often see, especially in newer students, is that sense of projecting the blame onto whoever or whatever they've been trying to fit in all this time. It's almost this sense of, my whole life I've had to, squash myself down to not upset my parents and to fit in with the family ethos. The family ethos. Is that how you say it? Ethos. And then, or, I've had to, fit in with this crowd at school, and now I'm so sick of just, I can't be myself, I can't breathe. It's that real sense of like, you can't be yourself, you can't take up space, you can't just be who you really are. And often then, it's easy to be angry at the people that you've tried to fit in with, and it's easy to blame them and to feel that they're the ones squishing you down and repressing you. And in some cases, it is the case, like it's, with parents and children, like parents trying to do the right thing, control the children, or try to mold the children to become what they think is the right thing for them, often the best of intentions. There can be a certain amount of oppression, repression coming from outside yourself. But in a lot of cases, you started the whole thing by choosing to squash yourself to fit in. And so after you've done that, sometimes then the people starting to place expectations on you because, hey, you came into the group, you came into that particular circle of friends or that crowd of people at work or whatever, and you acted as if you were a certain way, and you had repressed yourself to fit in. And so people then expect you to continue being like that, to continue doing the same thing. And then that can be felt like an oppression or a repression, because now you're coming to the point where you want to change and you realize that you need to be more yourself and you want to break free from that box that you've put yourself in order to belong. Or it's not really belonging, it's fitting in. And so, you're pushing against not only the repression you've put on yourself, but also the expectation that have been then formed and put upon you. But you have to remember that it's you who's changing the rule. It's you who were not honest about who you really were with these other people. So they may expect you to be someone you're not, but you're responsible for that in the first place. So when you have that experience of, wanting to break free of certain boxes, limitations, and, be more yourself and stop trying to fit in so much and trying to be the peacemaker and trying to please and be approved of and all that stuff by other people, remember that in the first place, you're the one who decided to oppress yourself and repress yourself in order to do that. So bring the blame back in. Whatever anger you're feeling, all of that, just take responsibility for it. And just remember that the people around you that you made the effort to fit in with may not know who you really are. They may not be ready to take who you really are. They may not be able to see even who you really are. But you can't blame them for that. You just got to run your own race. You just got to be who you really are. You got to be compassionate and patient for those people, because you're changing the rule of the game. You're changing who you are, and you're stepping out of the box that you had agreed to be in order to be part of that group. And so just go through your own process, have patience and compassion for the others, and just don't do that whole thing like, well, leave me alone. I want to be myself. Bugger off, and, you've been, squashing me down all these years, and I need to be myself now, and it's your fault, and it's never anybody's fault but our own. The only thing that's a bit different, but even then, it's still a choice that we made, is when we're children, but that's very difficult as children, when, we have so many expectations placed on us to not want to comply with the expectations that parents especially, but teachers sometimes and carers and sometimes siblings have of us. So even though we make the choice to do it in order to get mom and dad's approval or something like that, to not upset the brother or the sister, in the end we still made the choice, but as children it's very difficult not to make that choice, of course. But still, in the end, we always have to just bring it back to ourselves and take responsibility. So yeah, that was belonging. Sense of uniqueness. Okay, now, as I shared before, we are unique as spiritual sparks of source. We are unique as souls, and this particular embodiment, this body and its personality and the way it expresses and what it knows and what it does and what it likes and doesn't like, all of it is completely unique. And it's very important to have that understanding. We are slaying insects that are in the field of... Nice. So it's very important to have that understanding, particularly for the more spiritual ones that tend to perhaps have a bit of an imbalance between that sense of this life right now and the fact that if you believe in reincarnation, that we have one life after another after another. If you start to become a bit ungrounded and too caught up in the bigger spiritual picture to go, well, this is just one blip in eternity, it's just one life amongst many, many lives. And for those of you who have memories from other lives and have more of a sense of your eternal journey, this is just one aspect. It can sometimes start to go into this, oh, well, you know, I'll do this in the next life, or, you know, oh, well, you know, I'd like to have this sorted before my next life so I can have more fun in the next life, and all this stuff, and that's all very well, but we also have to remember that we'll never be this person again, and we'll never have a chance to make the most of enjoying and expressing the gifts and the qualities and the abilities and the experience that this person is having in this life. Now, that doesn't mean that, you know, you forget everything else and you just, you know, go out and indulge every hedonistic dream and fantasy that you've ever had. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm just really talking about making the most out of this embodiment. Of course, you need to have an awareness that this is just one stage in the journey, and that whatever you do now and whoever you are now and however much you grow and naturalize in this life, of course, is going to set things in motion for the next life. And, you know, karma happens and consequences of our choices then are experienced. And that can be wondrous or not so wondrous, depending. But really just embracing the uniqueness of the human being is just so important, because it's like really not waiting to be able to be intimate till the next life, because, you know, you have intimacy issues in this life, but, you know, you're working on it, but really in the next life you'll just incarnate in a different place, in a different body, where it will be easier to enjoy intimacy, or you know, maybe you're just not really making the most of taking opportunities that come your way in this life. Maybe, you know, you're feeling inspired to do something artistic or creative, or maybe you're, you know, being invited to travel, or to, I don't know, to just experience different things. But for some reason, because you have certain fears, certain beliefs, certain limitations, you don't make the most of it, and you think, oh, well, you know, whatever I don't have time to do in this life, maybe I can do in the next one. Maybe I can do more art in my next life. You know, I think I'd like to do this because I didn't really get to do it in this life. For all of you who have unrequited dreams, you know, these things that you dreamed of doing but never really happened, it's a fine balance, because you don't want to hang on to dreams that are no longer relevant. You know, sometimes it's like, yeah, maybe, you know, like when I was 15, I dreamed of being a rock star. You know, I'm not really interested anymore. At the time, it was something that really inspired me, and a lot of journey has happened since then, and it's not really relevant to me anymore. But, you know, for some people, there's certain things that maybe you never really had a go. Maybe you never really, you know, took your balls in both hands and just go for it and take risks, and even if you were going to fail and fall down on your face. And so sometimes we don't necessarily do that. And for the more spiritually minded ones here, we have that thing of like, oh, well, maybe in my next life I can do that. Well, maybe you can, you know, it's possible. You can maybe do that in your next life, but you won't do it as this person, with the gifts that this person has, or with the perception that this person has, or the story that this person has. So good to remember that the uniqueness of the human being needs to be valued. Then, of course, there's the uniqueness of the soul and the uniqueness of the spirit. And when we work on, we often talk about, you know, the true self, you know, I need to be my true self, I need to find my truth and speak my truth and all of that. That is also something that's unique, and that's something we need to value, and knowing that the truth as you express it is going to be slightly different from the truth from, you know, this person here or that person there. And so that's why the whole spiritual path needs to be about each person actualizing in their own way, and not everybody trying to be like a conformed copy of whatever guru or teacher that they're following, because that is not the true self. If you're being exactly like whoever it is that you're emulating or whatever teacher you're following, then you're not being your true self, because your true self will always be slightly unique, slightly different. There are, of course, a certain amount of commonality in the spirit self, because spirit is just spirit. There are certain truths, there's certain qualities. We can get into really complex things where, you know, it's like whether this lineage, spiritual lineage, the spirit and soul and monad that you are has been spawned in this universe or another universe, and then we get into a very more complicated thing because different universes has particular qualities that are stronger than others. Like this universe is a love and wisdom universe, and courage and joy are very important theme in it too. So if you were as a soul spawned in this universe, like you're a child of this universe, then there's certain qualities that are going to be, you know, coming to the fore stronger than a soul that's been spawned in another universe. That will be maybe a bit different. Maybe qualities that will really stand out will be like divine will and intelligence and things like that. But, you know, that's a bit out there. But in the end, it's just that whole thing of embracing your truth means that you have to be unique, and you are going to be unique. So to some degree, no one can take you there, because no one can go there, because no one is you. However, we all need a teacher at some point on the path, because you can only go so far without having someone who's a few steps ahead of you, who's realized more of the general truth of what spirit is, to guide you, to help you see the way ahead, to help you just show you the way ahead. It's like, hey, you know, I'm a few steps, come this way. Someone who's going to invite you to travel the journey step by step forward towards more and more of spirit and more of being spirit. But there's always going to be a point in that journey where you got to find your own knowing and you got to find your own truth, because that will be absolutely unique to you. So even though we can all learn a lot from reading books and listening to teachers and all of that, being in a discernment, of course, because there's also a lot of, you know, ramblings on and nonsense out there, we need to have that balance of learning about spirit, and, you know, it's really useful to have examples of people who are a few steps ahead, but at the same time finding your own unique path and realizing that in your own unique way. And that's why it's so important in order to mature properly, because if you don't really embrace that uniqueness, you can't really just go the whole way at being you. You're gonna maybe just imitate someone and be a bit like this person or be influenced by this or that thing in your life, but you're not really gonna allow the development and the growth of all that you are to happen, because you are not embracing that uniqueness that no one else, nothing else can do for you. And that's the only way that you can really take it all in and make the most of everything that you are, and express it all and allow it all to bloom. So yeah, so that's why it's in the path, it's important to do the reading, listen to the CDs, do the courses, do all of that, but it's also important to spend some time meditating and effecting your own exploration, your own unique exploration of your own uniqueness at the same time. Staying in discernment, being aware that, you know, it's not about letting the negative ego, your monkey mind, just invent all kinds of nonsense to make you feel special. That's often the imbalance that can happen when we're trying to be unique, but we're doing it from a place of ego. It turns into that wanting to be special, which is very different. You know, uniqueness is a very humble expression. It's got nothing to do with being special. And at the same time, knowing that when you are in meditation and you are expanding your awareness and perhaps exploring a bit more of who you really are and how you relate with the planet and life and the universe and everything, and the answer is 42, you can sometimes encounter energies and beings that may or may not be very clear. So you always have to have your discernment around you. And remember that if it doesn't feel like unconditional love and above, you say no, you're not interested. And if you're not sure something, you have that, even for a flash of a moment, that niggling feeling that something's not right, or it's like, that's just weird. Or even if, you know, you encounter a being that looks like your teacher or someone familiar, or, you know, Jesus or whatever, but there's that feeling like, oh, there's something off here. Don't disregard that, because that's that intuition, that spiritual intuition, that knowing telling you that even though that being is looking like Jesus or like your teacher, it probably isn't, because you have that, oh, there's something off here. So you got to also, have your wits about you and be mature about it and be wise about it. But it is an important part of the journey, affecting your own exploration and finding your own unique way to understand, digest, actualize, express all the things that you're learning and all the things that you're working on. Now, a sense of worthiness. I think I'll keep that one till the end. Let's go to sense of self-determination. The functioning knowing and understanding that we have the ability to control what happens to us in an uncertain world. I'm having trouble with that word for some reason. This self-efficacy or sense of self-determination allows you to know you can succeed. It inspires you to make your life about long-term success. Okay. Self-determination is really that power of choice, that power of free will. It is something that to some degree or another we exert and we exercise in all moments. When we're choosing to do nothing, we're making that choice. When we're letting ourselves be seduced by something that's appealing to our weakness or that's glamorizing us, we're choosing to say yes to that. We're choosing to give in to the weakness. When we're choosing to attack someone and let ourselves get triggered and say something mean because we're triggered, we're choosing that. And it's very important to remember that everything that we've ever done, including the big mistakes that where we didn't know any better and all of that, and sometimes we didn't know any better, we still chose to do these things. It's like, when I was, let's say 15 years ago, I went into all these relationships that were very dysfunctional, and I didn't realize at the time how dysfunctional it was. I didn't know any better. And yeah, that's possible, but you still chose to go into those relationships every time. And even though you may have been in denial of the pattern that was running, you may not have been consciously aware of the fact that this was very dysfunctional and there was another way. The fact that you had that denial, that you didn't want to see the truth of what was happening, meant that you actively chose to disregard what was really going on in order to choose these dysfunctional relationships. And maybe you needed to experience that because maybe the dysfunctional relationship just validated a belief about you deserving to be treated badly because you've been naughty or because you're not worthy or you're stupid or whatever beliefs that we have about ourselves that cause us to go into dysfunctional relationship time and time over again. And so, of course, consciously you didn't know any better, but you still chose to deny what was really happening. You chose to have experiences that was what you thought you believed. You chose to believe certain things about yourself, and you chose to go into these relationships every time. Everything that you've ever done in your life, even when you didn't know any better, you still chose it. And it's a very sobering thing, but it's, as much as it's like, oh crap, these horrible things I did, I chose to do this. These mistakes I made, this was what I wanted to do more in that moment than any other choice that was available to me. Otherwise you would have chosen something else, Whatever choice you make is because you want to make that choice more than any other choice in that moment. And then, sometimes you look back and go, oh my God, that was a stupid thing to do. But in that moment you wanted that more than anything else. When you own that up, as much as it can be a bit sobering, and it can actually make you confront your avoidance and denial, which is actually a good thing, it's very empowering. Because you really realize that you are not a victim to anything or anyone in your life. That everything that you're engaging with, every choice you're doing, even when you're being misled, you are choosing to go along with it, or you're choosing to indulge it, you're choosing to do this. And so you can start to backtrack things. You can start to go, wow, I need to be a lot more conscious about what I'm choosing. And when you are really owning up to the fact that you're choosing something in the moment, and maybe in that moment you're in denial of what's really going on, or you're being misled by someone and you're just buying into whatever lie they're weaving for you, and then you at some point down the road realize, oh, damn, I did it again, I made a mistake, I believed that person, they misled me, and I went along with it, and I choose to disregard the signs along the road that I can see now that there were signs along the road that were, telling me that there was something off, but I didn't really pay attention at the time, and so on. the fact that you're really owning how much you chose to actually disregard the sign and how much you chose to let yourself be misled can really then point the way to what's going on within you that's causing you to do these things that are self-destructive. So it's actually really helpful to review the mistakes you made, the times where, yeah, you avoided, you denied, you chose to buy into less than truth. Because when you really look at, I chose this more than I wanted to choose anything else, what caused that to happen? What was I invested in that caused me to want to be misled more than I wanted to stand up to that person, for instance? Maybe there's that fear of confront, or maybe there was illusions about that person or what that person represented. Some people sometimes have, let's say, it's this whole thing with the men of authority, there's this sense of, well, they know better. Sometimes even adults have still that sense of other people know better than I do. And it's quite a common one, this one. It's almost like these people have never fully grown to the realization that none of us have any clue what we're doing, and that not one person knows much more than the other. Of course, there are people who are experts in certain fields and that they have a certain amount of knowledge in certain fields, but in life in general, all of us, in some areas at least, have no idea what we're doing, but we're just having a go and just making it up as we go along. But there can be lots of things that are revealed when you really look at it from this point of, I chose this over any other choice available. Why is that? What's going on within me? What do I have to let go of in order to stop choosing these things that are not good for me, destructive, taking me in some pretty strange directions? And then you can really start to unravel all of that. And when we exercise our self-determination in a healthier way, it's really a sense of coming back to center, coming back to the center of your life, and coming back to being the master of your own destiny. And when you really work with self-determination in a healthy way, and you build that pillar, and you really actualize more of the potential of what that pillar can be and mean for you, what it does is really bring you into a sense of being more at cause in your life rather than being at effects. Now, let me explain. Being at effects is when you have a perception and an experience that you're going through life having to deal with what life throws at you. It's just like stuff happens around you, you don't have any control over it, and all you can do is just react to what's happening and do your best to kind of get over the hurdles and sail through to the other side and hopefully manage that as best as possible. As really, when you're really caught up in that sense of victim, you don't even really have a sense of whatever life throws at me, I can, choose how I respond and make the best out of it. Really, the people really caught up in the victim is really, all that stuff's happening to me, there's nothing I can do about it. And I myself know several people like that. I'm sure everyone's here has known people like this, is that sense of, oh my God, it's not fair and all that stuff's happening and there's nothing I can do about it, and I'm in this situation and I'm stuck because I can't do this because, this person's my partner, and I can't do this because this is my job. And it's just like really narrowing the sense of possibility that they have available to themselves. They feel really trapped and they feel like everything that's happening to them, they don't have that much leeway to change it or to do anything about it. Then when you start to grow, you start to have that sense of, well, life throws all kinds of stuff at me, but I can choose what I make of it. I choose how I react, I choose how I respond. Then you go that little step further, and it's really that sense of, I can turn any challenge into a blessing. I can turn any curse into a blessing. And that's a really transformational stage to embrace. And a lot of us are working here on that. It's really that sense of, whatever's happening in my life, whatever comes my way, I can kind of turn it around or make the most out of it or make the best out of it, because I have the power to choose how I respond to what life throws at me. And it's very important to get that, because that is the beginning of empowerment. It's the beginning of mastery, of knowing that you always have a choice how you respond to things in life that happen to you, to what you're feeling, what your thoughts are. No matter what happens, no matter what people say or do to you, you always have a choice how you respond and what you make of it, what you do with it, and how you turn it around. You always have a choice to stay or leave, to speak up or shut up, to, I don't know, negotiate, to see the gifts in it and focus on the gifts. So somehow use what's happening to turn it into something useful. And so very, very, very important. Now, as you continue growing on the path, the next stage is you start to realize that life is not just about things happening that you have to choose how you respond to or turn them into blessings. You actually are able to make stuff happen in your life. So there's different stages of that, where you use your energy to manifest things on the ground, like manifest the perfect job or manifest a great relationship and manifest things to happen in your life. And you start to realize that the way you think, the way you use your energy, the actions that you take, the way that you allow yourself to be guided by the heart's knowing and by spirit causes you to go into certain directions in your life where you can start to manifest opportunities. You can start to make stuff happen for yourself, where you're not just like hoping one day that, you know, a good job might present, but you're actually actively putting energy into on various levels. That's more than just doing stuff on the ground. It's also having a vision and projecting that vision into the world, putting energy into motion for these things to land and happen on the ground. That process is often a bit akin to a gardening thing. We often use the metaphor of gardening, because a lot of it, what people don't necessarily understand, is that this process of manifesting things to happen in your life is not about you going towards a particular goal or a particular direction. It's really about you inviting a particular outcome to ground into the here and now, because there is no future. There is only the here and now. So your job in the here and now to make things happen and to manifest certain outcomes is to prepare the ground so it's fertile soil to grow whatever it is that you want to manifest in your life. So having the kind of energies, the kind of situation, the opportunities, the space, and the nutrients, so to speak, for that are relevant for whatever it is that you want to manifest in your life to all be present. It's like if you want to make a chocolate cake, you have to have all the ingredients ready for the chocolate cake to be able to be manifested. Well, in the same way, like you have to work on creating a set of conditions that are favorable to grounding and attracting the kind of outcome that you want to manifest. So you can think of it as getting all the ingredients ready for the cake, or you can think of it as getting the soil nice and ready and moist and fertile and nice and rich and smelly for the garden that you want to grow. So, you know, manifesting things is not about you going into a direction, it's about bringing. It's like almost like different avenues, you know. If you imagine yourself standing on a plaza and you have different streets going out of it, well, your job is not to then go in a particular street, is to be able to see like each street is a different possibility of what can happen. So, you know, in any given moment, there's a certain range of possibilities available to you. Like for me, the possibility of being a surgeon is probably very remote. It would be like the tiniest little back street, like in the very back over there. But, you know, there's other possibilities of what the future can hold for me that are more probable. You know, it's probabilities and possibilities. Now, every choice that we make makes it more probable or less probable that certain things will happen. Like the probability of me dying of a heroin overdose is also very low because I've made certain choices in my life to have a certain lifestyle, to live a certain way that makes that possibility almost impossible at this point. Not completely impossible, you know, strange things happen, but pretty much impossible, just like the possibility of me being a surgeon, because choices I've made in my life means that it's probably not going to happen. If earlier on I'd made choices to go to medical school, it might be more probable. So every choice we're making through that self-determination is taking us in a particular direction where certain possibilities become more probable and other not so much. And so the process of manifesting things in your life is making sure that you're making choices that are going to make the things that you want in your life more probable. And also bringing in all the energies, the ingredients that are going to really attract the kind of things that you want to manifest in your life. Now, if you want to do that in wisdom, you are making these choices guided by the heart's knowing, guided by spirit. And you don't create all the ingredients and do all these things in your life to get outcomes that are really about satisfying selfish needs. You know, it's all about getting greedy or the hedonistic or, you know, manifesting things that are going to give you a false sense of worthiness and self-esteem in your life. Because that's, you know, some people are very good at manifesting things in their life. They make all these things happen, lots of money, and they have all these things they want, but they're really doing it from a place of ego. It's all about satisfying selfish needs. Hopefully everyone here is more committed to doing it in a way that's more about love and wisdom and more in alignment with actualizing more of the greater potential of all that you can be, in a place of sacredness, you know, in a place of doing things not just because it makes you feel good and that's what you want, but because it feels right, because it feels to be in the nature of the spirit that you are, and because it feels to be in alignment with the unique person that you're being right now and the unique soul that you are. It seems to be part of your path somehow. And so that's that active part that we're taking in manifesting our destiny. And the more you grow in awareness and the more your energy comes online and the more you start to really understand how things work, how energy works, how the world works, you start to really be able to work with energy in a way that makes things happen, makes events happen in your life, in the world. So it's basically that same process I was talking about before, about possibilities and probabilities, but just taken a bit further and with a bit more awareness and consciousness thrown in, and usually also like a bit of a more expanded consciousness, a more expanded sphere through which you act that. But self-determination can go from a whole range of things to a whole range of things. But self-determination is really that sense of remembering that that's the process you're going through. It's about everything that I do, everything that's happened in my life is something I've chosen in some way or another, whether I did it consciously or I did it because I didn't want to see the truth. Everything that I've done, experience is something I've chosen. Everything that happens to me, everything that manifests is something that I can choose to turn into a blessing, to learn from, to grow from. This is something I can, I can choose how I respond to it. And then you step into that whole sense of, I am the center of my life. I am the captain of my ship. I am the master of my destiny. And I remember, because I've kind of woken up a bit to myself, that I'm not a victim, and that even though it may take time and may take work, and I may need to put some energy into it consistently over time, I can make things happen in my life. And yes, sometimes it takes time. Sometimes there's a lot of resistance, you know, especially the resistance often inside us, because sometimes we have beliefs that we don't deserve these great things that, you know, we can achieve and we can be. And sometimes we're not sure that we'll be up to the task. Or sometimes there are people around us that don't really want us to succeed for whatever reason. So often the process of putting energy into these things you want to manifest, to draw these possible futures into the present, means that you also have to go through a process of clearing and transformation within yourself to be the person that has that life. You know, attracting a particular life is not just about attracting that life, it's also about being the person that you need to be in that life. So the process of personal transformation is also part of the process there. I'm going to have a drink. In the middle of a discourse. I feel so empowered. So, when you exert your self-determination in that way, you can really see how it does inspire you to succeed, because it's like everything's in your hands, everything's in your power. You're not a victim, you can make things happen. If you have the patience is very important to work with that, because patience is not being attached to outcomes. When you become attached to outcomes, You have either urgency, it has to happen within a certain time frame, or it has to happen a certain way, and there's this fear coming in the mix where you're scared that something might not happen, you become really attached to that thing happening. But when you're working from that sense of being the master of your own destiny, you don't have that, because you have patience, you have the sense that you know that you can manifest certain things, and you're not doing from that place of ego that we talked about before, you're doing it from a sense of just because it feels right. You don't have an attachment. It's not about your little needs and your little wants. It's just about following the heart, following what feels right. And so when you embrace that self-determination like that, you are inspired to know that you can succeed. You are inspired to know that you can achieve great things. And you are really usually focused on that long-term success, because it's not about, right now, I need it right now. It's more about like, this is the future that I choose. This is the life that I feel inspired to embrace. And it's not just about, it's just, you expand your awareness. You're just a bit more in the bigger picture. That's self-determination. How are we going so far with remembering what we talked about with belonging, uniqueness, and self-determination? A deeper understanding, the belonging, the fitting in, and the natural thing, and the uniqueness on different levels. And self-determination, we talked about that whole process, from being the victim to exercising self-determination in different ways until you're really kind of at cause rather than at effects in your life, and how we manifest things. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit more about worthiness then. That's often a big one. So worthiness, what it says here is, in order to self-actualize, you have to be glad you are you. That you are you, not anyone else. To have a sense of worthiness, you have to really value being you. Not being Brad Pitt or Angelina or your neighbor that's got something that you wish you had, or that looks the way that you wish you did, or really to value being you and to enjoy being you is a huge part of worthiness. And the obvious thing with that is not wishing that you were someone else, of course, there is that. Not envying the things that other people have or are, and wishing that you were them, or that you had their life, or that you had their job, or that you had this and that. So envy, jealousy, all that stuff has no place with worthiness. And at the same time, it's that valuing being you also has to do with not wishing that your life had been any different. That's also a big part of worthiness. It doesn't mean that reviewing your life and in retrospect you can't see that you could have done it better in different moments. You can't see any better ways. I hope that you do, when you review your life, see that certain things in your life you could have done differently and you could have done better. Because what that demonstrates, you being able to do this from the here and now, is that you've grown since then. If you, looking back over your life, you couldn't see, oh my God, I can see now that there was a better way, or I could have done this a better way, then if you can't do that, then it means you haven't grown since then. So, however, often what people do is the reverse, where they look back on something they did last week, last year, last decade, and go, geez, I can really see I should have done that in a better way. And what they do then is start judging that they didn't back then do it in a better way. But you can see the better way now because you've grown. You've become more aware, you've become more conscious, you've chosen to see more of the truth of what was really going on back then, but at the time then you didn't. And of course, you could have, but you didn't. And maybe you weren't ready, or you just didn't have the strength or the confront or something. So it's very important when you do the review thing to not then project judgment onto your past because you think that what you know now is what you should have known then. Because, that's actually not healthy. So if you can see a better way about your past, that's a good thing. It means you've grown. Yay. And so not wishing that your life had been any different doesn't mean that you can't conceive of other ways that you could have done. You can't even wonder. It's like, oh, I wonder if instead of, studying this, I would have studied that. Or instead of having this relationship, I went off and did that. Or whatever. You can't consider, I wonder how life would have been if I'd done it differently. And I can see that there was better ways that I could have done it, but I wouldn't change a thing. You really have to come to that space of understanding that everything that took you to the here and now moment made you what you are to some degree. It's been formative in your experience. It's been formative of your character, of your learning. So you really have to value yourself where you are now. And that means also valuing the whole journey of where you've been and everything that has taken you to the here and now. Of course, you can see better ways, but you wouldn't change a thing because you wouldn't change you. You wouldn't change you. It's very important. Glad to be you. I'm glad I'm me with all my rough bits and my stupid little idiosyncrasies. And I'm just still, you know what? I'm happy I'm me. I wouldn't want to be anyone else, and I wouldn't want to have another life, and I wouldn't want my life to have been any different. I wouldn't change a thing. That's the place you want to be. Doesn't mean that you can't see things that you might want to change in your life. But it's not coming from a place of judgment, how your life has been or where it is right now. It's coming from a place of, where next? Where do I take it next? Very different attitude to, I hate my life and I wish everything's been different. And I hate myself and I wish everything was different. Well, if you're starting from this point, first of all, you're not going to change very much because you're judging everything in your life. You're judging where it's been, you're judging where you are. And as you know, when you judge something, you can't let it go. You can't clear it, you can't release it. Because judgment keeps energy stuck, it freezes things. So the more you judge your life, the more you're going to get of this, more of the same that you judge. So very important to come to that place of understanding that where you are at is the fruit, to some degree, of all the choices you've made and everything that you've experienced. And there's been lots of wonderful things in that. And maybe you haven't even got all the learning and the wonder out of all the experiences that you've had because you've been too busy judging. As long as you feel guilty about something, you judge something, you can't really get the learning, the wisdom, and the wonder out of that experience. So making peace with the past, accepting that it is how it was, and it was how it was, A, because you chose it to be that way, B, because that's how it needed to be, because that's what you chose in that moment. Now, let me explain. We talked in self-determination before how everything that we experience, everything we do, we choose it. Whether we choose to do nothing or to ignore something or be in denial, we choose it. And the thing is that if we choose something that's less than love, that's less than truth, that means that we still need to go through the learning that comes from choosing less than love and less than truth. Because if we had grown beyond needing to experience the dysfunctional relationship or experience the self-loathing, all that stuff, then we would be over it and we wouldn't choose it anymore because we wouldn't need to choose it anymore because we would be ready for something else. So everything that we choose in our life, we choose it, but we also choose it because we need it. Every time we choose it, that means we need it. Every time we need it, we choose it. It's that kind of weird self-feeding dynamic. And there's quite a lot of that happening with worthiness, because really, with worthiness, you get everything you believe you deserve. And that's the same in life. Everything that's happened in your life, you got it because you chose it, because you believe that's what you deserved. And that comes down to this. So, with worthiness, there is that element of choice, yet at the same time, everyone's worthy. It's that funny thing, Michael says sometimes, quite, as a bit of a joke, everyone's worthy, but some are more worthy than others. Well, it's true, and that's one of these paradoxical truths, as the truth often is. Everyone is equally worthy. Everyone here, everyone in the world, even the, most horrendous serial murderer, everyone is worthy, equally, in potential. However, everyone doesn't choose to be as worthy as the next person. And not everyone chooses to live their life in a way that reflects their worthiness or their potential for worthiness. And that's really the tricky thing. We often talk in the worthiness process, that when we're working on all these feelings of not being good enough, not being worthy, all that stuff, that there comes a time in that process where you feel the feelings and you let go and you clear and so on. And that's helping. You choose to feel worthy and all of that. But there comes a time in the process where you just got to make the choice to know that you're worthy. Step over the line. I'm worthy. And everything that comes up that says anything to the contrary, that, I'm not good enough, I'm never going to be good enough, and all these things, I'm less than, I'm inferior, all of that is not the truth. Because you are worthy. In absolute, you are absolutely, completely worthy. Because you're part of creation, you're part of source, you're part of God. And there is a place within all of us, deep within the heart, where that knowing comes from, that knowing of the truth, that we can key in, that knows this absolute sense of, I'm worthy. Not for doing anything, not for having any particular job or status in society, not for proving anything to anyone. I'm worthy simply because I am. I exist, therefore I am worthy of existing. I am alive, therefore I am worthy of being alive. And that's an absolute truth that's in there for everyone. However, the beliefs we have about ourselves causes us to behave in ways and to manifest things in our life that we're going to use to prove to ourselves that we're not worthy. So why we start to not feel worthy? Because it's a pretty strange world. Lots of things, impacts happen in life. We get put down, we get ridiculed, mocked, not accepted as we are. We draw conclusions. Some of it is just in the collective human psyche. It's just how it is. There's a lot of shame and, that original sin, and we're all born in sin. There's some of that running in the collective psyche. There's a sense of, the flesh is evil and all that stuff around. We have to make ourselves worthy. And all of that's running in the collective psyche of humanity. And, when we not born into this world, when we are born into this world, we, to some degree, we are influenced by some of that collective baggage of the collective psyche of humanity. Because just as we have our own baggage from our own life and our own experience and the things from the past that we drag on, humanity as a whole also has its own baggage of stuff that's just like the fruits of centuries and millennia and millions of years of human experience. And all the major influences along history that have been part of the human experience have had their impacts on the human collective psyche. And so, some of it is just in the collective psyche, some of it is just the impacts life after life and in this life of experiencing rejection, experiencing hurt, and we interpret it, things that happen to us in a way that means, this person is leaving me, therefore must be something wrong with me. These people are not accepting me as I am, therefore there's got to be something wrong with me. And there's a lot of that going on, and really 99.9% of the people I meet and the people I work with have had this dynamic of, if people don't like me or people don't approve of me, or don't agree with me, or don't want to be with me, then it means there's something wrong with me. There's very, very few of us that ever go, actually, honestly, I don't think there's anything wrong with me, maybe something wrong with them. Really? How many here have experienced rejection or being put down or criticized and just always gone like, well, not always, but, really wisely gone, that's not about me, it's just their stuff, and I'm not going to take it personally and make it mean anything about me being less than or not good enough or not lovable or... Sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, learning more. You learn to do it more.
Yeah, and that's it. Like as you grow, you learn to not take so many things personally, but really, childhood, teenagers, oh my God, teenagers are like the worst for that. It's like everything's about you being wrong, not being enough, and not being beautiful enough, and not being, smart enough, and fast enough, and strong enough. And So yeah, you know, as you grow, you start to kind of mature and just go, well, actually, maybe, you know, it's not all about me, and maybe it's about them too sometimes. But unfortunately, our worthiness gets impacted by all these things that we take personally, where we go, oh my God, you know, if these people don't like me, reject me, hurt me, push me away, and, you know, tell me all these things that are wrong about me, then there's got to be something wrong with me. So stuff that really affects our worthiness are the meaning that we assigned to the experiences of our life. And that's comes back to that real subjective experience. It's not so much what happens in our life, it's the meaning we give it that really can affect us. Because, you know, we've all heard the example of two different people going through similar experiences of their lives, coming out of it like very different. And it's not so much that, you know, they experience very different things in their life, it's more that they made something else out of it. So the experience of, you know, the children that were abused, or some of them grow up to be, you know, gangsters and killers and perhaps abusers themselves, where others just grow up to be, you know, strong, compassionate human beings that are going to go perhaps help abused kids or something. And they've both been abused, but one chose to make it mean something and to turn it into one particular thing. So they took their life in and their difficult experiences into bitterness and anger and working all that out in that way, while the other person worked more in I don't know, maybe learning from it and you know, deciding that they were going to do something better with their life than what they were being subjected to. And they just chose, they made different choices in the face of their experiences. And to some degree, to work on worthiness is reversing all these scars by undoing the meanings that we've assigned to things. And when we do work on the worthiness within us, we get into those feelings, we often can trace it back. Sometimes we don't know exactly when it was or what happened, but sense of feeling of, oh, you know, all that unworthiness, when I feel into it, I can really feel a sense of not being good enough for my father, perhaps, you know, like that sense of no matter how hard I try to get the good marks at school or whatever, it's never enough. Like, he never tells me well done. It's always like, you know, well, you didn't get 100%, you know, you got 95%, you should have got 100 or whatever. And you made it mean that you weren't doing enough, instead of going, well, maybe he's being a bit harsh here, 95% is bloody good. You went, oh, you know, my dad's not happy with me, it's not good enough, you know, I need to do more, and it's never good enough. And so really unraveling all these beliefs and realities that we created by giving meaning to particular things and interpreting things in a particular light is a big part of undoing all this baggage that we carry around not being good enough and being unworthy and not valuing who we are and what we are and what we have in our life and our whole life, because we decided that it should be something else. And that's often the problem with judgment and self-loathing and all of that, is that we have at some point decided that we should be different from what we are, or that our life should be different to what it is. And that's an expectation, and often very unreachable expectations. You know, we often see the dynamic of perfectionism going hand in hand with worthiness. You know, it's like the unworthiness is also driven by constantly striving to achieve an unachievable ideal, or an idea of perfection that's just not even realistic. And if you have that dynamic running, that's a real self-defeating pattern. At some point along the way, you decided that your life should be perfect, or it should be a certain way, and you're constantly striving to achieve that thing that's completely not realistic. And you're coming from a place of judgment of where you're starting from. And of course, you're never going to get there. And of course, because first of all, you can't get there because that there is not even realistic or real. But also, you're coming from that place of judgment. And so, as you know, when you judge something, you're just going to get more of what you judge. So some of these patterns with worthiness are these real cyclic things. You know, it's like you try to do this and it feeds that and it feeds that. And the more you have beliefs around not being good enough, not valuing yourself, not being worthy, the more you're going to manifest things in your life out of judgment and out of those beliefs of unworthiness and feelings of unworthiness. The more you're going to keep proving to yourself that you're not good enough, because you're going to close yourself off to love. You're going to not allow yourself to have the opportunities that you could deserve, but you're choosing not to deserve. You're just going to constantly make choices that are coming from that place of not feeling worthy, not believing that you're good enough. And so all you're going to do is just the self, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, self-defeating, certainly, but that's self-fulfilling prophecy thing, where you're going to constantly prove to yourself that you're not worthy by constantly choosing not to be worthy and choosing to live your life in a way that proves to yourself, again, that you're not worthy. But all of that is not the truth. It's just you playing your own little game, going round and round and round and round in cycle. So we need to choose to know that we're worthy. We need to practice connecting into that deep place within that knows and feels that in absolute, we are all absolutely worthy. And then we need to make choices in our lives that demonstrate that we are choosing to live our life in a way that demonstrates our worthiness, our natural intrinsic worthiness, that God-given right of worthiness. We need to break the cycles. We need to debunk the conclusions that we drew out of life and our experiences, where we made certain things that happened mean that there was something wrong with us. We need to really face where we are sabotaging ourselves in our lives and sabotaging opportunities because we are just only choosing to be deserving of so much less than that we actually do deserve. And we need to choose to live our life not only in a way that embraces more of what we're worthy of, but also demonstrates to the universe and to upstairs that we are worthy of being worthy. Now. That's a whole other thing. So there's that sense of worthiness with yourself, where you value yourself, you value your life, you're in that sense of acceptance. I wouldn't change a thing. And I'm consciously choosing to take my life into particular direction that are going to be in demonstrating that I know and feel my worthiness. And I'm going to accept all these things that I'm worthy of. But at the same time, I have to live my life in alignment with certain principles, laws, energies, qualities that also going to demonstrate to Source, to God, Goddess, the universe, that I am worthy of representing Source. And that's a whole other thing. Unfortunately, it gets twisted sometimes in the whole thing of being worthy of God's love, which is, God's love is always there. It's not about proving yourself to be worthy of God's love. That's not that, because you are loved by Source, by God, Goddess, the universe all the time. That love is flowing towards you all the time. Of course, you are receiving as much of it as you're choosing to be worthy of. And the more you choose to be worthy of receiving that love and being worthy of that love, the more you're going to feel that love in your life. So the more you become aware of the love and benevolence of the universe in your life, demonstrates the more that you are choosing to be worthy of that love, which you are naturally worthy of, but you're as worthy of it as you choose to be. And then the other thing is really that relationship with being worthy in the eyes of spirit is about aligning yourself to the universal principle. We talk about the 3 universal principles are principles to live by in your life that align you to the way that the universe works, that Source reality works. And if you live according to those laws and principles, you're actually living according to the laws of spirit and the laws of the universe rather than the laws of egos and fear. Now, the first principle is humility, gratitude, and appreciation. Practicing that in your life, that sense of being grateful for whatever comes your way, because we remember we chose it, we can turn it into the blessing, there's always going to be learning and growth out of it. Appreciation, gratitude, very similar. Appreciation kind of is a more expensive, to some degree, adding the mental conscious component of things to gratitude. So gratitude is that real kind of coming from the heart, thank you, I'm so grateful. Appreciation is just, to some degree, a little higher vibration to it, because it really adds that element of consciously directing a sense of value and appreciation towards that which you are grateful for, if that is some sort of explanation. Humility is that sense of correct proportion. It's not about playing small and false humility. It's not about being a little peacock showing off and puffing up and playing bigger than you are. It's about really being able to acknowledge where you're at, how far you've come, and all the great qualities and the great strengths that you have, as well as how much further you have to go and all the rough bits that you have to work on. With humility comes that sense of accepting where you're at, being happy where you're at. I was saying before, I wouldn't change a thing, and I'm totally okay to be where I'm at, and I'm choosing then to go this way. Well, humility's got a lot of that in it too. So the first principle is bringing that sense of gratitude, appreciation, and humility together. And when you bring them all together, a sort of magical chemical reaction happens. And that's the first principle. The second principle is the practicing the holy encounter, the namaste. It's about acknowledging the presence of Source within everything, everyone that you meet, every experience, every moment. It's really bringing the presence of Spirit, of the universe, of Source into everything in your life. And the more you practice that, the more you focus on that, the more the presence of Spirit becomes obvious in your life. And the more becomes this experience of being held in the arms of the universe, rather than just having to call it from somewhere out there, because you really just know you're in it, and it's surrounded by it, and it's in you as well. And living your life in sacredness, really, is what comes out of this as well. And the third principle is the nurturance of life. It's sometimes also called service to all that is. It's about basically dedicating yourself to something greater than yourself and your own wants and needs. It's about expanding out to become part of creation, part of life, in a way that's nurturing of life itself, that's going to nurture life moving and evolving towards its highest potential. And it's not about having an agenda or thinking you know what's better for people in your life or everyone you meet and everything you do. It's about surrendering to the natural flows of evolution and being part of someone who's going to help evolution forward, that's going to help everything and everyone reach its highest potential. Everyone that you can come in contact with and all this, not necessarily by doing anything or saying anything, but living by example, acknowledging the nudges of Spirit and the guidance that maybe does inspire you to do something or to say something to a particular person that's going to sow a seed of something that's going to help them have an awakening. Or maybe, to go off and do a class or a workshop, or maybe to just hold a particular energy as you go about your daily business. Sometimes it's nothing. Sometimes it's just being an example, doing your best, living your life in a way that other people are going to go, I'd like some of that. Maybe I should do more what she's doing. So these are the three principles. And when you live according to those principles and apply a lot of the things that we practice here at the Cosmosis Mentoring Centre, you are basically practicing making choices in your life that are going to prove that you are choosing to be worthy of being part of creation, part of Source. You are naturally, anyway, no matter what choices you make, you are there in absolute, in potential. Yet, the choices you make demonstrate the worthiness. So it's a funny, paradoxical thing. We are all worthy, equally worthy. The most selfish, cruel, evil person is just as worthy as you are in potential, in absolute. Yet, the different choices that you are making in your life, choices of love, choices of acknowledging and valuing your own worth and receiving what you are worthy of, but also giving and expressing in a way that shows that you are worthy of being part of Source and part of God. All of that is also very important. And that's why sometimes when we achieve things in our life or we follow our heart, sometimes we have that inspiration to just go off and leave everything and embrace that dream or make a change in our life or extend ourselves towards that particular person or whatever, and we're just following that knowing in the heart that guides us to do this thing, and we are nurturing life and we are expressing gratitude and kindness and humility and all these things. sometimes after you've done something like this, you really get this sense of worthiness. You do. And, we keep saying you can't invest your worthiness into something outside of yourself. You can't, your worthiness cannot depend on the job that you do or the partner that you had or how much money you have in the bank or anything like that. Or even, because some people, including healers and people who are doing this kind of work, caring or healing, have their worthiness depend on that, or their worthiness on, getting the people that they're doing healing on think that they're wonderful, or, just go, oh yeah, you're such a good healer. And they're deriving their sense of worth from that. That's not a healthy thing, because that's not them expressing the worthiness that they know that they have and living their life in a way that demonstrate that they know how worthy they are. They're doing these things to get worthiness. See what I'm saying? It's a different dynamic. You can either do things to get worthiness, or you can either do things to express your worthiness. And so that's the real difference. And so, but when you're doing things in a way that you're expressing your worthiness, you're expressing the spirit of which you are and the worthiness of that, and you have something to offer. You may not know what it is, but you feel that sense of worth of, I don't know what I have to offer, but I feel there's something worth offering in there. And you're following the guidance of spirit. Then you get back that sense of, oh, wow, I feel like today I've had a day where I've lived my life in a way that demonstrates my worthiness. And, you're glad to be who you are. You must have your own approval. Now, let me talk a little bit about the difference between the dynamic of self-love and the dynamic of self-approval. Because that plays a role in the whole worthiness thing too. Sometimes when people try to love themselves and practice self-love, what they're doing is actually practice self-approval. Self-approval is, well, it's a step forward from depending on the approval of others, to be sure, but it's really just going, oh, if I do this or I perform this way at work or in my life or whatever, I achieve certain things, oh, good on you, I'm happy with myself, I've done well today. But if I have a bad day or I perform not so good, I do something disappointing, I make a mistake, all of these things, and I disapprove of myself. And what I do then is be hard on myself. Maybe the inner critic kicks in, you bloody idiot, you should have done it this way, la la la. We start to beat ourselves up. Maybe self-loathing kicks in, depending to what extent you have those dynamics running. So what we do when we have that disapproval dynamic running with ourselves often is that if we do something that we approve of, or we're being in a way that we approve of, we just give ourselves lots of approval and lots of love and lots of feel-good feelings. But if we don't do so well and we're judging what we're not happy with how we've been, then we disapprove, and what we tend to do is withdraw the love and instead just put judgment, criticism, all that stuff onto ourselves. Now, I'm not saying that you should approve of yourself when you do really stupid things. When you do something really stupid, you need to be able to acknowledge, well, that was bloody stupid. I behaved like a stupid kid today. You need to be able to acknowledge that, but you need to be able to do that without taking the love away from yourself and without judging yourself. And that's a real, real key. You need to be able to love yourself and be supportive of yourself in all moments, even when you disapprove of what you've done or how you've behaved. It's okay to disapprove of what you've done or what you've behaved, but you shouldn't stop loving yourself because of it. So very important. Practicing self-love is not about doing things that indulge the feel-good stuff. It's about being there for yourself, no matter what's happening, no matter what you're going through. It's not about, I'm going to practice self-love today, I'm going to have a hot bath and eat 3 kilos of chocolate and, have a glass of wine or something. That's not self-love. That's, that may be relaxing. Well, I don't know about the 3 kilos of chocolate, but, and the glass of wine is bad for you. But that's not what self-love is. Self-love is being that inner coach. It's about having that kindness, patience, and understanding for yourself. It's also about making sure that you're guiding yourself towards your highest potential. You know, we talked about the 3 principles before: the gratitude, humility, appreciation, nurturance of life, all of life, including yourself, nurturing the life that you are and of which you are towards its highest potential. So when you're making choices that are about indulging the ego or hurting yourself, self-defeating things, that's not being self-loving. But, you know, we have patterns running, we're still working on our stuff, so sometimes we do make mistakes. When it's like this, don't approve of it, but still love yourself through it. Very important. All of that gives you the emotional means to explore and make the known unknown. Why is that? Because you're there for yourself. You're supporting yourself. You're there, cheering yourself forward. You're there guiding yourself to make the best choices possible in order to grow, to explore. And when you have that sense of value of yourself, and you decided that you're going to make choices that are going to demonstrate that you know and feel that you are worthy, and that you are being there for yourself, loving yourself no matter what, you are really, it's like, it's going to feed your courage. It's going to feed your confront. It's kind of that sense almost like the little kid is more likely to go and explore something new if the mom and dad are behind going, yeah, come on, you can do it, go on, and they go, are you sure? Oh, all right, then I'll give it a go then. And they go and explore something new. Where, if the parents are like, oh my God, it's so scary, it's so new, you're going to fall, or you're going to hurt yourself, or they're just not there and don't care, the kid might just go, oh, that's a bit too scary, I think I'll just go back into what I know and what's comfortable and safe. So it's, once again, we come back to that kind of parenting sort of relationship with yourself, or that inner coach relationship, and that does give you emotionally the strength, the sense of being supported, the sense of valuing your choices and what you have to experience and what you can make of your life, enough that you can really grow and expand into a lot more of you and of the potential that's available to you. There. So yeah, worthiness. Interesting dynamic. We all worthy, but some choose to be more worthy than others.